Welcome to the English webinar. English because I'm finally speaking and giving some lectures, some webinars also in English, and it took me a while to get to this point, but I'm glad I did it because like I said once on my Instagram, I'm speaking English daily, literally every single day, as well as German because I live in Germany, obviously. However, everything that I do and create and publish online, so to say, is mostly in Serbian, in my mother tongue. So I thought to bring some new changes now when the spring is coming in, and decided to give a little bit of more of this kind of content also in English, because I also feel very comfortable speaking in English, and also because everything that I learn and the way how I think nowadays is also mostly in English. So I hope that you will enjoy tonight or at any time that you watch this, because I said that I will provide a recording of this webinar. And yeah, let's slowly dive in today's lecture. Healing Your Intuition. It's the title that I gave to this lecture, which basically is mostly focused on intuition. I felt a huge urge to talk more about intuition. I mean, I'm already speaking about it in Serbian, obviously, for quite some time. But I decided now, when it comes to English speaking area, so to say, that I first start with intuition. Simply because I think it's a very important topic. I think it has to be demystified because whenever we use term intuition, we don't use it as something serious, as something like a skill on the equal level as thinking, as logical thinking, right? We all glorify and love logical thinking. Of course, the intellect is very strong in our society, no matter where you are on this globe. And intellect is very praised, right? And that's all right. It's all fine. Intellect has its own place, and it helps us tremendously in our lives on day-to-day basis and also long-term. It has wonderful, virtues, so to say. However, it has also its own limits. And when it comes to intuition, I feel that it's only portrayed as something that is not so easy to grasp, something that is just like, I won't say like woo-woo or anything like that. I think the term intuition is already now even colloquially used. But I think that it's not enough talked about it in a serious manner, which is really explaining how intuition works. Why is it so important that we use our intuition? The mechanisms of intuition. It's not something that you can learn or that you can teach in universities or in schools. We are not yet there. However, I'm sure that this will come once in future. I'm quite sure that at some point we will get there when we can talk openly about this in a very almost scientific way. Just in order to ground this thing, to really integrate this skill in our daily lives, because it's super helpful. It's so helpful because even if you think now about certain decisions that you made where you said that, or you thought that you followed your gut or you followed your heart and you made certain decisions that made a huge difference in your life in a positive way, I think then it deserves really to be understood, that we really understand intuition, what it is, and how to really use it on demand, on day-to-day level, and not just something that occasionally happens and out of blue, so to say, because it is a skill that could be taught. It is a skill that we can learn, that we can practice and develop. We all have this basic level of intuition that it's in our gut, right? However, intuition can also be very much developed on much, much higher levels, so to say, where, some people would call it higher mind or higher self or the inner teacher or certain type of wisdom that you cannot just logically think about. And that's why I thought to dive into this topic to talk about it. Just like the basic or the essential understanding what intuition is and why is it so important right now in this time, in this day and age. Why is it so important that we use intuition? So I will go through it. I will go through this importance of intuition in our day-to-day, and especially like long-term in the future. Why is it so important to use it? Also, how did we disconnect from it? We were all very, very intuitive when we were children, right? Children are super intuitive. They're very much connected to their intuition. And the question is, what happened down the line? How did we lose this touch with our own intuition? And also how to heal it, how to restore our intuition through healing our wounds, our subconscious programming, and so on. I will tell a little bit about it. And also, I will really love to touch upon the mechanism of intuition, or like the in the metaphysical level, I would say the heart is the portal of intuition. But we can also use more scientific vocabulary and say that the heart intelligence is the one which is very important for understanding intuition, because heart has its own nervous system. It has its own consciousness, so to say, and we can always tap into that, and it can help us a lot in our own life. I will talk about also this coherent state between our heart and brain, right? This alignment with our mind and our heart. Why is it so important? What this coherent state or coherence creates around us. And also I will mention a small technique that you can use already now on your day-to-day basis, how to activate intuition, or how to get into your own heart, so to say. Okay, so let me see if I have to let in someone. No, we're all good. So, yeah, first topic in this lecture is, why is it so important that we become aware of intuition and the importance of the intuition itself? If you just have a look on the recent decade, or even 2 decades, that doesn't make so much difference, except that we have even now more and more information. In the last decade, or ever since we have, of course, internet integrated in our daily life, and the easiness of, or like the accessibility of information is so fast and so high. It is really, on one hand, amazing that we have so much information around us. Basically, we can get any answer within for our questions within a second or two, and this is on one hand wonderful that we have so much information. However, when it comes to making any kind of decision which requires a little bit more of thinking and requires that we discern out of so many informations that are out there how to make decision, it comes now very hard to get it, like to make a decision just on the basis of information that we have. It becomes harder because we have so much information on anything. So what I want to say with this is that it is very hard to rely only on ego, to rely only on the intellect as the source of making the best decisions for us, simply because we are so overwhelmed with amount of information that we have nowadays. So I like to say that ego is completely overwhelmed and exhausted right now within humanity, because it has really tough time to make any decision. And this will be even harder in the future, right? As the time goes by, we will have even more complex technologies, faster technologies, and so on. And at some point, it really exceeds the capacities of our minds, of our logical mind, of our ego, and so on. So that's why understanding intuition is actually super helpful, because intuition is something that can help you to make decision that is the best for you, like the optimal one for you. It is not something that is designed to give the answers to everyone globally, but is really designed to give you the answer that is just right for you. That's why it is so amazing when it comes to decision making, simply because just making decision on at the level of informations that we have, that our mind can reach from our own experiences or past experiences from other people, or just like, typing in the internet and seeing what's possible, we become easily overwhelmed and we have this decision fatigue. It's quite often this phrase. So therefore, it's one of the reasons why I think it's so important that each of us can really be able to stand in our own heart, right, and to really question ourselves within every decision that we make, whether it's what am I going to eat, till the decision of what career choice am I going to make, or how to parent my own child, or whatever. Like on every single topic that I now mentioned, you will have gazillion information and answers to it. When it comes to nutrition, you will have thousands of studies why something is good for us or why certain food is bad for us. So we literally become really frozen when it comes to decision making. That's why I also feel that we have a huge stagnation when it comes to, on a global level, when it comes to creativity or science and innovation. We really experience, at least here in the west of Europe, a certain stagnation in the last decades, because there is not so much of innovation. There is a lot of optimization, which is all fine, but we really lack creativity and innovation. And I think one of the reasons, of course, there are so many perspectives and reasons, but I think it's because we are so shut down from our own hearts and our own intuition, and we simply follow the rational way, the most logical way, and thinking in that terms. And then when you only use that and build businesses, universities, doesn't matter, institutions, on that basis, it was just the question of time when we are going to reach a certain stagnation. Of course, that will change. Of course, that humanity, every couple of centuries, it makes huge progresses and innovations. And there will be a certain breakthrough, obviously. But yeah, what I want to just bring a point to this is that that we really need to connect to this like higher intelligence, and intuition is definitely one form of higher intelligence, because it operates with informations that are not just based on our rational thinking, logical thinking, or the information that are already available to us from the past. Intuition definitely operates with the information that transcends, so to say, that goes above that. It goes above that, and it comes from this so-called unified field, which is around the whole globe, more or less. I will talk about it later on. What is this electromagnetical field which contains a lot of information around us and around the whole planet, so to say, and that basically intuition is a way of how to tap into this field and simply perceive what is best for you in the future, so to say. What is the best decision for the future? So yeah, that is the one point that I wanted to really touch upon. That really it is a time for science, for scientists, for creatives, for basically everyone to finally start to use their own intuition to the same extent as our own logical mind. So this is not the talk where I will say the mind is bad, nothing like that. I love mind, I love intellect. It serves us tremendously. And a very well-structured mind is very, very helpful for developing intuition. Like very, very, it goes hand in hand. It doesn't go against each other. So a strong intellect and strong intuition are actually very complementary. And you will see that the most intelligent people on earth who made huge innovations or creatives were, let's say, like Albert Einstein, right? One of the most famous ones, were highly intuitive people, highly intuitive and also highly cognitive. Like they really use their intellect to the highest possibilities, as well as intuition. So that's why I want to preach so much the intuition, but also, yeah, definitely understanding that the mind is equally important in this whole game. However, today I will talk about intuition because we really lack of it. We really miss that in our day-to-day lives, in our structures, systems, in the society, and so on. We must understand that this ego consciousness, so the lower consciousness, the mind that is only, the mind that is really like in the tunnel, it has only one perspective. The problem with ego is that it has only one perspective. And that one perspective considers survival, right? So ego is there for a good reason. We have it in order to survive. Our logical mind is here so we can make our life on day-to-day basis possible, right? However, it doesn't have the capacity to be creative, to be innovative, to bring change, to go forward, to get out of the comfort zone, and so on and so on. For that, we use our higher mind, so to say. That's why if we want as a society to make any kind of progress, the way forward is not to be stuck in our minds. The way forward is actually to connect our minds to our hearts, to really build this this conversation, right? This communication between the heart and the mind, because when they work together, it really makes wonders, miracles, innovations, however you want to call it. And it also heals us. It brings us a lot of inner body healing, mind healing, and so on. Down the line, where I think that society goes towards is building these conscious communities. So I think we are slowly coming globally to the conclusion that we cannot make it alone. We cannot make it on our own and isolated and separated from everyone. I think this time where we have this, the cult of personality, right? Where that one person is responsible for the greatest success of certain company or a team or athlete team or whatever. That doesn't matter. Like, we have this strong urge to always praise the individual. And that had its own place, right? And we see now what is the bad side of it when we all focus on that one individual that has to, be responsible for saving the world, saving the company, saving the families, and so on. So we will slowly get out of this, highly individualistic way of functioning to slowly building these conscious communities. This is, of course, very, very long process. This is not something that will happen overnight. I'm just wanting to share some information from what I feel that it's now down the line and where it goes, simply because I think it might be helpful for all of us who are on this path of self-discovery, self-fulfillment, and all that good stuff, right? So we're going to build these conscious communities because we cannot do everything alone. We all came to this conclusion. And I think that, there will be no longer these individuals who make great successes, but rather there will be these small communities who will slowly rebuild the world in a new way, so to say. Of course, I speak now in a very utopian language and something that it's very hard now to perceive, but these are very slow and incremental changes that will inevitably come once, when we are ready for it. So, of course, when I talk about communities, it is not now the time where we are living as a tribe, right? We are individuals. We are going to keep our individuality, but we are going to learn how to work as communities where everyone is taken as serious, as important as everybody else. So, stepping out of this hierarchies where, we have this one leader or whatever, there will be more and I think it's way healthier, that we build a world where we are aware that each one of us is equally important, that there is no such thing as one person is less worthy than the other or does a job that is less worthy than the other. We have it right now and we see how toxic it is. We see that as soon as some crisis happen, then we realize how certain people and groups who work in, I don't know, medical area or whatever, are out of nowhere now very important, and years ago or decades ago not so. So this is this part where the humanity will slowly go from this very egotistic consciousness to heart consciousness. So the one that includes everyone, but still keeping our own individuality, our gifts, our individual creativity, thinking, and all of that. So yes, that's why I'm mentioning now the heart and the heart consciousness, because it needs to be also developed as well as our mind consciousness, right? In order to even talk about intuition and being in our heart, one of the most important conditions for that is to start to connect ourselves to our inner child. And we need to heal our inner child. You know that at the beginning I said that when we were children, children are super intuitive. We were very, very highly intuitive when we were young, because it was just the natural way how human operates. We use our intuition, our heart intelligence predominantly. Also, if you would think about the evolution of the human body and everything, first the heart was the one who came, so to say, which was made, and then the brain. So heart is much older evolutionary, in evolutionary terms, than the brain itself. So that's why intuition for us is so primal, and you might call it instinct or gut feeling, like also animals would have. But for us, intuition is a little bit more sophisticated skill. It's not like animalistic. Of course, it can be on the lower levels, but on the higher level, it can be a tremendous guidance for us to simply lead our life in a way that it's going to fulfill us, in a way that we can be more authentic. Because the fulfillment is not something that you achieve or you reach a certain point and you can say that I'm fulfilled. Fulfillment is you can pull a direct line to living authentically. So just being who I am, with all my flaws, with all my shadows and all of that, and equally aware of how amazing we are and how wonderful we are, and we are all so important in this whole universe, right? So that's why intuition is for me a vehicle to that, because the more we have intuition, the more authentic we are, the more ease we have in our life, and the more fulfilled we are. Actually, we can say that we fulfill our purpose. Our only purpose in this life, on this earth, is to be ourselves, to just be in our own nature. And this is really the hardest thing to do right now. It's really the hardest thing to do right now, because most of the people don't know them. We really don't know ourselves fully. Due to the fact that we have subconscious, that we have this fragmentation that happened in our childhood, where because of the way how we are brought up, right, the upbringing, the socialization, schooling systems, and all of that, unfortunately for the most humans, because of all of that, we had to disassociate from our own nature in order to survive in the system. And we basically had to adapt, right? We had to adapt, we had to fragment ourselves, to lose certain parts in order to survive and to fit in our communities, in our families, in our society, and so on and so on. So that's why the way to how to integrate, to bring intuition in our life on grand on the grand doors is through healing. It's basically through healing our subconscious, through healing our inner child. When I say inner child, it's basically the part of us that stayed at that level, when we started to grow up and started to disassociate, right? We left certain parts stuck, so to say, and those parts of us that felt hurt and unseen and not validated. There are a lot of parts of our own personalities that are not seen and validated fully, and through our subconscious and through triggers in our now adult life, we can perceive that. We can see that it's still there, it's still alive, and it wants to be healed and it wants to be integrated. So that's why the inner child is so important when we talk about intuition. Carl Jung was one of those great minds who talked a lot about it, about our subconscious being basically, or our wounded self, our inner child, our shadows. However, this is the portal through our own true, authentic self. So we have to go through that, through that darkness in order to get to that magical part, the creative part of us. Until then, it's only going to be locked and we won't have access to it. That's the way how it functions. Those are just the basics of psychology and how our psyche works. So if you're interested into that, definitely read anything in terminology, inner child, Carl Jung and his shadows, explaining the shadow systems, archetypes, and basically anything that has to do with healing our subconscious. So I'll just have a little bit of water. So the second or the following topic that I want to touch upon is actually this, the healing of the inner child and our subconscious programming. As I said, we have a current issue within our society, within ourselves. When I say society, it's each one of us, right? All of us have this issue of being more in our egos, right? More in our minds than in our hearts. Hearts of most of the people on earth are currently closed because collectively we have been prioritizing our intellect, right, since our young age. With that being said, also our feelings, our emotions, our heart, our whole inner world is to the biggest extent invalidated. It's not seen and validated and praised at the same level as our intellect is, right? We see that everywhere, in schools, or even nowadays when we are, in the workforce and so on. Intellect is very much praised, and nobody wants to deal with tricky feelings, emotions, and all of that part. Our heart and our inner world, the way how we, fantasize, or the way we are creative, nobody is that so much interested into developing that in us, but rather society's interest lies more in productivity, in efficiency, which is highly correlated to the mind. However, what majority don't know is basically when you are in your heart, when you follow your heart, and when you're activating your heart consciousness, you become extremely efficient. That kind of hyper focus and flow that you can experience when you are creating and working out of the heart, out of heart consciousness and intelligence, everything becomes much easier, much more collaborative. It doesn't need so much time, and so on and so on. So hopefully we will realize that it's also logical that we use more our intuition and our hearts on a day-to-day basis. So like I said, our whole inner world and emotions in our heart were invalidated through our upbringing, our school system. And this is where the whole negative subconscious programming has started, in our primary families or in schools and so on. This happened, of course, to every one of us, because we are part of this earth, and the life on earth simply considers it's part of the game, right? It's really part of the game. or the school. A lot of mystics or metaphysical teachers, philosophy teachers will tell you that we are here in a school, Earth School, where we are basically discovering and learning about ourselves through duality, through positive and negative, basically. So that's how it works here, right? So there is nothing, nothing wrong about it. It's just the way and the method of how we currently learn and live on our planet. That doesn't mean that it cannot evolve, right, and goes above that. It can transcend duality at some point in our evolution. So yeah, this subconscious programming, fragmentation, and all of that happens to every human. It's part of this school. It's how we learn to evolve as souls, basically. The basic problem is that we are taught to use our intellect for things where intellect has huge limits, right? So intellect is amazing for, cognitive thinking, making simple decisions, how to get from A to B, or, to solve certain mathematical problems and whatnot. For that is absolutely amazing and fantastic. However, decision making for ourselves, it is not somewhere where intellect can thrive on its own, right? It needs another counterpart, which is heart and intuition. So as you can see, in our day-to-day lives, we're not encouraged to make decisions for ourselves, right? We're mostly encouraged to follow what others say, what other people say. And that was something that started in our childhood, and it's still happening, of course. And this is how we disconnected from our heart, right? The more we were forced to follow what other people say, what is the best for us, the more we disconnected from ourselves, and we lost the touch with our own heart and with our own true nature, with our authentic personality. So another issue or the limit that intellect has is that it cannot foresee the future, because it only operates with information that come from the past, basically. So those are the informations that intellect can collect: the past decisions, stories from other people, and that's it. And it cannot tap into the future, it cannot foresee it. However, we constantly use intellect and ego to make our future decisions, or decisions for our future, based upon the past events, which can only basically just keep repeating the same. That's why you see the people that just keep repeating the same issues, the same troubles, and so on, because it's constantly just people are making decisions based upon rational thinking, and it has its own limits. On the contrary, when we talk about intuition and heart, they have the capacity to foresee the future in a way to really intuit what's the best for us, for the next period of time. Also, like I said, the intellect was praised, right? And this is how we started to also follow what the other people say, what is the best for us, and so on. We become disconnected from our heart. We also became disconnected from our own emotions. And emotions in generally are trickiest thing when it comes to society in general, because nobody wants to deal with the heavy emotions, right? Everyone just wants to be happy or calm or whatever, but emotions have a large spectrum, and emotions are very important because they carry a lot of information about ourselves and about the environment that is around us. So emotions are carrier of information, and just discarding them or putting them aside can only make and it definitely makes life much tougher, and it forces you that you keep repeating the same patterns that are for most humans bad and detrimental eventually. So I always, I always laugh about how we like treat each other when it comes to work, jobs, whether it's corporate or institutes, academia, doesn't matter where we are so focused on thinking and we don't want to deal with any type of emotion. We all have to be cold and focused, and in the best case we are open and we are smiling all the time, but all the other emotions and other parts of you are not welcome. And this always kind of bothered me, because it seems like we have to be one persona in our jobs and completely different persona in our families or with our friends and so on. So that causes a huge fragmentation within ourselves. We really lose the touch with our own true nature, which down the line, as you can see, it causes tremendous stagnation within society globally. So those are the two things that I wanted to mention, right? This invalidation of our own emotions in the inner world, and understanding our emotions and really validating them, basically. We are allowing ourselves to understand more our subconscious as well. When I talk about inner child and subconscious, it's important to just remember that our whole behavior, like for the average human, the most of our actions and our behavior, how we speak, how we think, is automated by our subconscious. For people it's very hard to stay conscious the whole time, which of course it's not even wanted. You cannot be super conscious and highly aware all the time, but we have to pay attention that if subconscious is operating and activating our behavior 99% of the time, then I think it's good to know what's inside, what's happening in our subconscious, in our inner world, and so on. And emotions are very, very important part of that, because a lot of emotions, when it comes to humanity and each one of us, are suppressed, are very, very much suppressed, are not being allowed to be processed, to be seen, to be validated, right? So that's why it's so important that we pay attention to those parts of us that have been suppressed because they are negative or unwanted or, not so positive and so on. You can easily see that with yourself, and just think about your primary family, or like your childhood, your growing up. What was not allowed, was it forbidden to be weak? Was it forbidden to be angry? Was it forbidden to be, name it? Just think about what was suppressed, what was not allowed, because that is the doorway through really connecting to our inner world, to our subconscious, and so on. Or you can also easily see it in now day to day, in your own behavior and patterns of behavior when it comes to people, and your relationships in your life. Pay attention to what triggers you mostly. Where are you easily triggered? What annoys you about a certain person? This is exactly the part that we reject in other people, is mostly, in most cases, also parts that we are not allowing in ourselves to exist, that we are suppressing. So pay attention to those triggers and everything that you are being annoyed by other people, Usually it is projection of something suppressed in us. On the other hand, you can also, when you think about your suppressed qualities, because we not only suppress our negative emotions, we also suppress some wonderful attributes and qualities that we have within us, but we forgot about them. And you can just observe people that you really admire, that you really praise, that you really, really would like to be like them. Think about them. Maybe some, famous stars, people, I don't know, scientists, artists, actors, doesn't matter. Just pay attention to who you really, really admire and praise, and you would really like to be like them. this is exactly that quality that you also have within yourself. You just forgot about it. You just forgot about it, and it's being suppressed and basically projected now and outlived through another person. So observing other people is a really wonderful mirror for us, a really wonderful opportunity to see things that are suppressed, that are negative, right? That we hate about other people, that really annoys us. And also the other things that we are admiring, but we don't have it maybe consciously within us, right? But subconsciously, very much so. So yeah, basically our relationships are there to really mirror our own inner world, and to show us what are we suppressing and what are we allowing ourselves to express as emotion. Also you can think about what do you adore within your children or your partner or your friends, because these are exactly these positive aspects that you carry in yourself, but you suppress them because for some reason it was not allowed or approved in your primary family or in school or wherever. Carl Jung said that behind the shadow is the magical world. So it is exactly this part behind our biggest fears, the things that we suppressed, where our really wonderful creative parts are living, like they're living now in a dormant state there and just waiting for us to shine the light of our consciousness on them in order to really give them this life again. We used to have them very active in our childhood, then forgot about them, suppressed them, and now they're slowly seeking their own way up. And usually the way they come up is through triggers, right? Through this shadow work that comes every once in a while. So yeah, it is important that we become aware that really behind the shadow is this magician. And this magician is the one who is very innovative, that has a lot of new ideas for us, that is very creative, and this is exactly the part that we want to slowly build a relationship with it. It is the part that it's called anime. It animates us, right? It's very creative. And the way to get to that is basically through basically through the shadow, right? And you can easily recognize it, what your shadow is, when the trigger situation happens, like I said. So observe what triggers you, which situations keep repeating every once in a while. You keep getting triggered within similar people, similar situations, something that keeps repeating throughout your life. It's easy to recognize it, when you sit down and focus a little bit and try to analyze your life situation and see where the biggest triggers that keep repeating themselves. They are basically just the reminder of our past trauma. And trigger causes this emotional charge, so you can finally become aware of the trauma that is behind this trigger itself. So it is basically designed to get your attention. That's why trigger and those hard situations in our life happen for most of the time. It is to trigger us and to make us become aware of those parts that are very painful, very hard to look at, right? But only when we really do this, when we really face this this monster, this dragon, that we can slowly build the self-trust, slowly getting to know ourselves better, and then after several iterations of this like healing session, so to say, this creative part, this wonderful part of us that is full of ideas and wonderful things, then slowly can emerge. And it really emerges slowly after we decide to stop this cycle of trigger situations that keep repeating in our lives. So that's why when it comes to working with our subconscious or with the inner child to me is just another name for this whole part of us that is suppressed and not being seen and validated, and it keeps coming, screaming through us when those painful situations happen in our life. So steps that you can do when trigger situation comes is first to basically recognize that triggers are messengers. So the events or people that are causing this, they're just the messengers. It is something that a lot of great teachers kindly advise is to not that we don't allow ourselves to be pulled into the situation that is causing the trigger, but rather to detach ourselves from it, at least for a few minutes or hours or days, and really deeply reflect what is behind this, like what kind of emotion, what kind of pattern of your thinking is happening. So really naming it, what is this trigger? What kind of emotion is being triggered? Is it the anger? Is it the grief? Is it bitterness? Is it sorrow? Just naming it already gives a lot of light and understanding on it, right? So the most important thing is not to try to escape this emotional state that is happening, but rather using it as a portal to dive deeper into our subconscious, to really understand what is now coming out of the subconscious when the trigger situation happens. So yeah, number one step is that when you experience any kind of trigger situation, to name it, to really name the trigger, what caused it, and to not try to escape it. Like, don't escape it, sit with it, right? The questions that you can ask yourself is, first, how do I feel? To name the emotions. This is something that we should have been taught all as children or in the schools. It's so important to really become aware of our emotions, like to say it out loud or write it down. How do I feel, right? The second question that you can ask yourself is, when did I last time experience this? When was the last time that I experienced the exactly same feeling, the exactly same situation, emotion, all of that? Like, when was the last time that this happened? Was it 7 days ago or 7 months ago or 13 years ago? Doesn't matter. Just how do you feel? First question. Second question, when was the last time you experienced this? And the third question, when you go a little bit deeper, is, if you can remember, when was the first time that you experienced this? When was the first time that you felt like this? So really observing that, really understanding when was the first time that happened. And usually it happened in childhood. The situations that keep coming up every once in a while in our now adult life are situations that definitely come from our childhood. Most of the time it happened from our childhood or like early adulthood, but just within those first 7 to I would say 13, 14 years, those were those very formative ages for us, where our whole subconscious and conscious mind were, formed. So usually when we do answer these questions in writing session or in some kind of meditative visualization state, doesn't matter, whatever suits you the best, usually you will get this kind of feeling or picture or memory of when did it happen first. And this is exactly this moment where you are connecting with your inner child. When you're connecting with this version of yourself that was, of course, much younger, and the one which experienced for the first time that trauma, and the moment where this suppression or disassociation happened, right? So that's why I love this exercise. And at the beginning, years ago, when I started doing it, I did it always by writing, by journaling, and it really helped me to really, really understand my childhood and my upbringing and my, you know, my life in those formative ages, because it definitely set a blueprint for my behavior and for situations that I kept re-experiencing in my adulthood. So that's why it's so important when the trigger situations, so like by trigger situations I mean any kind of uncomfortable situations that causes emotional explosion within you. So that's exactly the point where we can use this how to say, portal, right, where the doors of subconscious are basically being opened, and where you can really tap in and see, first of all, how do you feel, which emotion was suppressed there, right? When was the last time you experienced this, and when was the first time when you experienced this? So those questions are basically just helping you to make this thread, you know, this connection within yourself, within your life, you know, when you go within your life timeline, right? That you see this logic, in a way, logical and linear happenings and events that caused, you know, that you come now to this point, to the now moment, where you are experiencing again something that is very disturbing, right? So the reason why I talk so much about this is because this is the basic work. If we want to talk about intuition and connecting with our heart and intuition, we need to first do a good portion of healing, like dealing with exactly these parts, the uncomfortable, suppressed emotions, or parts of ourselves that haven't been validated and seen by anyone, not even by us. So this is something that you can do, of course, with yourself. If there are some really harder traumas, emotions, memories, I kindly advise you to do this with therapist, with any kind of professional person who knows, who is basically trauma informed and knows how to work with this stuff. Because sometimes when we open these doors, right, a lot of things can come up, and we need always someone who can keep this very safe space for us to re-experience this in a safe way, in a stable way, so that we can just, you know, release it and process it, because this is something that was not being done when we were young, and therefore we now have to do this, right? If we want to heal, if we want to understand ourselves, our nature, our qualities, everything about us, this is the way how to do this. And this is also the way how to activate our heart, and how to then be very much open for intuition and following intuition. Because intuition means we have to really have a huge self-trust. The problem with most of the people, we are all intuitive, but people are not trusting enough. They're not trusting themselves enough to really follow the intuition. It's usually like, now I'm just tripping, or this is, you know, I don't have proof for this. Why should I do this? I don't have a logical proof or, you know, physical proof of why is this the best thing for me, you know, but you feel that it's good for you. So the more we heal ourselves, the more we build this self-trust that we can take care of ourselves, and the more we can rely on our intuitive skills. This is the pattern, the way how to go through. Okay, so I will have a little bit of water, and then I want to go into the final point, which is heart intelligence and the mechanism of intuition itself. So just to check. Okay, so we came now to the third point, to the final point, before I close the lecture. Heart intelligence. So I talked now a lot in the previous few minutes. I talked a lot about the healing and the importance of healing for just tapping into our heart and our heart intelligence, or our intuition. It's the same. Why is healing so important? Why? What does science say? So the healing of our subconscious basically harmonizes the mind and the heart. It really brings it slowly into this coherent state, which means like heart and mind are communicating with each other and working together. This is what we want. We want the collaboration from both of them. We don't want that only mind takes over. We also cannot, just let the heart run on its own, right? It always needs support from another in order to be balanced and healthy. So the healing of the subconscious harmonizes the mind, the brain, and the heart. And only through this healing can we reach this deep intuition on demand. You know that I said that we want to use our intuition on demand whenever we need it. So the more we heal, the easier it gets to do this, right? Right now, for the most of people, these moments often happen spontaneously, out of blue, when you get this hint and you followed actually your intuition and something great happened. So usually people would say that happened once in a while, but it can become more and more frequent the more we heal. So yeah, it's nice really to know that intuition can be called upon, and we can call it by entering into our heart. Also, when the heart and brain are synchronized, the beautiful side effect is that our body, the whole body interprets it as healing. And it basically it releases that really nice biochemical cocktail that is synthesized. And basically it harmonizes and stabilizes the whole cardiovascular system. We have a very nice balance between our sympathetic and parasympathetic system or nervous systems. We have a heart state, which is, we can also call it flow state. When we get our heart and our mind in this nice coherence, we are basically in a very nice flow state. This is not relaxation. It's a really state of high focus and centered, when you're very centered and focused, So it's high flow, focus, and centeredness kind of state. It's not a relaxation. A full relaxation would mean that we are fully in our parasympathetic mode of nervous system. However, when we are in this heart-brain coherence, we are in this flow state. Because it's a very nice communication build up like a channel, and we can flow. What is also nice to know from the scientific perspective is that our heart has its own mini brain, so to say. It has a lot of neurons. Those are like cells that are like brain neurons that are basically receiving information from our environment. And these informations are being sent to our brain through our heartbeat. So this is the basic understanding of how intuition works. These cells, these nervous cells in the heart, have the ability to learn and to connect and to synchronize with the brain. And they really, really like to connect with the brain, especially in those phases of our lives when we are making some positive changes, when we are building some new habits, new way of thinking, behaving and whatnot. This is where those heart cells are very, very likely to connect to the brain and to send basically this information up there to do some positive changes. So when we say this coherent state or coherence between the heart and the brain, it means that this is a state of a state which is very highly organized and efficient. If you remember from the beginning of my talk where I said that introducing heart intelligence and not only our intellect, our cognitive intelligence, actually will make the whole society way more efficient, way more organized and ordered. It is really foolish to think that just by rational thinking we can make things more efficient and more productive. It's actually, we have to add also our heart intelligence in order to become really, really organized and efficient. And in this type of coherent system, what is really nice is that all the individual parts are operating in a harmony, and almost no energy is lost. So it is a state of least effort and maximum benefit, because all the individual components are working together rather than against each other. So when the rhythms of our heart become coherent, the heart's electromagnetic field becomes equally more coherent. So what I want to say is that this kind of coherence of heart and brain, it just sends this waves of healing and transformation throughout our whole system, including the brain. What I also loved when I read about this is that when we are in this coherent state, our heart frequency is aligned to the Earth magnetic field frequency. So it is, if you would measure the frequency of our electromagnetic field around heart when we are in this synchronized coherent state, and if you would measure the frequency of electromagnetic field around the Earth, it would be the same, literally the same, which shows us how we are all connected, and that we can tap into this collective field and actually find a lot of information, a lot of useful information. So basically, intuition would be connecting through our heart to the whole collective field and receiving information that is best for us and that is basically also aligned with the whole collective, right? So it's not only just best for us. The really amazing thing about intuition is that it includes everything else, everyone else. That's how intuition works. Nobody is being harmed by intuitive decisions. Nobody, because you are basically tapping into this collective field, right, that connects us, the whole planet, the whole humanity, and whatever comes from that field, which is directed to us, it's not only beneficial for us but to everyone, for everyone included. So yeah, that is what how coherence in this aligned state between heart and mind can be really wonderful and beneficial to the whole society, basically. Also, when we are coherent, we are able to positively influence others with our own field, right? You know this when someone that you really love feels sad or is just not feeling himself or herself in the best way. It is our state, basically, if we are in a coherent state, in a balanced state between heart and mind, that is directly being transmitted to them, and this is what helps them to heal. That's why when you are with someone if you're feeling bad and you are next to your loved one who is in a good mood or somewhat balanced, it really helps you to balance yourself and to come back again to your own coherent state. So that is this really nice part about influencing each other with our hearts. The heart coherence, how can you recognize that you're in heart coherence? Well, basically you're physically, mentally, and emotionally synchronized. We are then also synchronized with nature. We're just in flow, right? And we are easier adaptable. And we can induce the state within ourselves. So it is not something that you have to wait for perfect conditions to happen in order to experience it. The way how to activate this heart coherence is basically generating certain types of emotions within you. So we can induce this state through emotions of love, peace, and appreciation. And this is basically the way how you can get out of this duality, right? From this, brain kind of left and right thinking, good, bad, positive, negative, and so on. So through the heart, you're basically transcending, you're exiting duality, and you're entering into this collective field where the informations are stored for all humanity. You can induce that state if you're able to, and of course, this is not something that you can force. It is not something that you can, do every single day. If you're lucky, that's really nice that life situations support you, that you can do this every day. But for the most of us, there will be days where you're not going to be able to be in your heart. But on those days when you feel somewhat okay, you can really induce this heart consciousness state or heart intelligence or coherence, whatever you want to call it, by really consciously entering your heart, really putting your focus on your heart and generating these emotions of peace, harmony, neutrality, love, appreciation. Those are really emotions that are on a higher frequency, right? So they will cause that your heart then basically sends the information to the brain, that it can calm down, enter into the flow, and so on. So the informations go from the heart up to the brain, not other way around. For a very long time, science thought that it's all about the brain, and the brain sends commands to everybody else. But it's not. The heart is the one which is, through this electromagnetic field, connected to our environment. And this is how we can basically also perceive other people's emotions. You're not perceiving them through your brain, you're perceiving them through the heart. You can feel when you see that someone, your close person, you're not feeling well or is being angry or whatever, you can feel this in your heart if you would just tune in. And this information is then being sent through those nervous cells, right, like that I mentioned, that we have in our heart. They're being sent up to the brain, and then the brain interprets it and tells you, okay, this person is angry or this person is sad, and so on. So it's very important to understand how it works. Also, like I said, evolutionary speaking, heart developed first, like before the brain. So heart has its own very complex nervous system, and heart and brain are in constant communication. And the important fact, again, to just reinforce and say, is that the heart is the one that is basically carrying the information. Like this electromagnetic field around the heart is carrying certain information that comes from our environment. So, of course, dependent on your emotional state, you will have a heart that will send certain information to the brain, like whether those are negative emotions or positive, doesn't matter, higher, lower, however you call them. It is basically the heart, the one that checks what's happening and then sends through the emotion, right? Sends the information up to the brain, and then we have the thought and an cognitive interpretation of what's happening around us. So it's basically the case that the heart will send information, and that our nervous system, our brain, is like an antenna. It will receive it, right? So when we are, like I said, when we are centered in the heart, then we are coherent. And how to activate it in order to receive certain information? This question, it is very important to understand that when we talk about being in our heart and receiving, or like trying to be receptive for the informations that come from the collective field, we have to first feel very safe for that. This is why we talked so much about this inner healing, because the more we heal, the more safe we feel within ourselves. We start to trust ourselves more. So, like I said, this is not something that you can force, especially when you are in a very, in dysregulated state, when you are angry or sad or whatever emotion there is which brings you out of balance, this is not the time when you are going to, activate your heart and ask on demand for intuitive decisions. Usually you first have to take care of yourself, process any emotion that is now happening, to come back to your, centered, balanced state, and then you can think about entering heart and layering those emotions, like I said. So generating the emotions of love and appreciation, neutrality, peace, and so on. And then if you need certain guidance, like what to decide for, this or that, then you can ask the question, right? These are this intuition on demand, right? On demand. So what you have to do is basically if you want to find the answer to your question, like what is now the best thing to do for me? It doesn't matter whether it comes to food or your career choice or partner choice, doesn't matter. You want to do exactly this thing. You want to know what your heart tells you, right? That's why they say follow your heart, listen to your heart. How to do this, right? So like I said, first it's important that we really feel safe, and then we can drop in our focus, right? Our consciousness has to shift down to your heart. So really focusing on our heart. We need to introduce some deep breathing, because when we breathe very deep, we change our basically the modus operandi, right, of our nervous system. So we go from this highly active sympathetic mode to parasympathetic. So we want to go into this more relaxed state first before we enter this coherent state, which is actually the fine balance between both. So through deep breathing and dropping the focus into our heart, we center ourselves, right? And we feel safe, right? And then we layer those emotions of peace, neutrality, gratitude, whatever feels good to you. You can also just think about someone that you love, or you can think about nature. Whatever picture that you have in your mind brings peace in your heart, think about it or imagine it, right? And then when you feel like that you are centered, that you are there, that you feel safe and balanced and synchronized, then you can ask the questions. Then you can literally ask, is this or that good for me or not? Should I go in this direction? And then it's just important that you listen, that you really listen, just observe what kind of feeling as a response is happening in your heart area. Is it shrinking? Do you feel some sharp pain? Do you feel opening? If you feel opening, then the most likely the answer is yes, right? Go for it. So it's important that we also, with repetition, you will slowly learn the language of your intuition. This is now a bit more, a bit more advanced teaching, which I will not now go into because of the time that we have. But each of us has its own specific language of intuition. So pay attention to when you get this kind of intuitive hints, like where to go, what to do. Pay attention whether you get a certain feeling. Is it a feeling in your body? Or do you get maybe a certain picture, it's very visual? Or you get like a certainty, some kind of knowing what to do, right? Or you might even hear something. So those are a little bit more like finer attunements to our own intuition. But for the start, it's enough if we learn how to connect with our heart, learn how to, first bring ourselves into the safe environment where we feel grounded, where we can do some breath work, some deep breathing, center ourselves, and then ask the question that we need the answer for. So yeah, that would be like a little procedure that you can, or a little method that you can already start practicing now. And probably at some point down the line, I will also teach more about this advanced intuitive skills, like really understanding your unique intuitive language. So yeah, I think I'm about to run out of time. just to have a little bit of water, and I think I have just a few more lines, like closing thoughts, that I want to read to you. So just to close this, a few thoughts that I wrote down and that I would like to share with you. So the heart. Our heart basically asks us to become adults. It asks us to heal the inner child in order to get to, all the beautiful, the beautiful creative parts of us, right? The heart will tell us exactly what we need to do in order to heal our inner child. It will always communicate us what's being needed. We just have to carefully listen to it, right? The more we follow our heart, the more authentic we become. And of course, in the beginning, it is very confusing because we still don't have a reference of what it looks like when we follow the heart. Sometimes it's very hard to recognize it because we don't have these clear references. We didn't consciously use our intuition, therefore we don't have a memory, a reference of it. But we can build that up, right? The language of the heart or intuition can be very unique and specific for each one of us. Therefore, it's important that discover down the line, that we discover really through which senses we get information most easily. The heart is being activated by love, right? This is what we talked about earlier. So heart is always going to open when you think about someone that you really love, right? Anything that stimulates in you feelings of love and peace, right? So you can always connect your heart just by putting, hands around here on your heart, on your chest, and just try to do this more often, just connect to it, listen to it, what it tells you, and try to keep a track of what kind of intuitive hints you get, and also act upon them, and start small, start really small on very small decisions, like intuitive eating, or when you feel like going for a walk, go for a walk. Just really follow those needs of your heart that communicates to you, because through that you will slowly learn the language of it, right? And you will build a lot of self-trust through it. Also, the very, very important thing is that that we have to have enormous patience for this process, because this process is not linear, it's not logical at all. The language of intuition, it's not rational, it's not logical. It's oftentimes hidden within symbols that are only understandable by, that can only be understood by us and not by anyone else. So just be very, very patient with yourself when it comes to understanding your intuition, healing your heart, working with your inner child, and all of that. These processes take years, really years, and the better it gets, the better it gets. So only after a few days you will see certain improvement in your life, because like I said, when we make these intuitive decisions, they are not only beneficial for us, but for the whole collective around us that is included in our life. Yeah. So with that, I will now stop with recording. Thank you so much for your attention, and I am looking forward to all of your questions. So yeah, thank you very much, and I will see you next time. Bye!